flip-flop a little bit. We're going to do the autopsy today, and then we'll look at decomp tomorrow, because I figure we should talk about what a fresh body kind of looks like and how they go about a fresh body before we start talking about things like putrefaction. We're also going to end up watching a video on an autopsy. A little bit weird that you're excited about that. So, in here or in general? So an autopsy by definition is just going to be the examination of a body after death. So by definition, simplest definition would be the examination of the body. Do you? After death. The new slide thing is because my old template is not available in the newer versions of PowerPoint. So this is the green one that they have available. It's also called the post-mortem exam. And the whole goal of the forensic or a medio-legal autopsy, so forensic, you also can hear it referred to as medio-legal, so referring to like medical and legal autopsy, is to determine our cause of death and confirm the manner of death. Often so it can be used in legal proceedings. So just in case you've forgotten the difference between cause of death and manner of death. Yes, COD. Wait, that's a video game. Yes? I think so. What is the cause of death? What does that mean? That's an example. So a cause of death would be, if I asked you for a generic version of what cause of death is. So the cause of death is going to be the disease, injury. So yeah, this is going to be what led to the death. So this could be disease, it could be an injury, it could be a stroke, it could be a heart attack, shooting, burning, drowning, poisoning, strangulation, all of those things. What's the manner of death? So, and we'll just, yep, classification. And you're right, they can be natural, accidental, yeah, undetermined. Undermined. No, that's me. Undetermined. Undetermined, I mean, it's common. Look at Casey Anthony. You know, Kaylee Anthony and them. By the way, there was just another article this weekend on your friend Casey Anthony. Her parents have said that they'll sue.
What?
They're going to sue Casey because there's a rumor that she and the newly released O.J. Simpson are working together on a reality TV show that is being suggested. So her parents said that they will sue. They have also said that they will sue her if she sells her story and writes a book about it.
I thought you were going to say they got together. I was like, yeah.
No. Nope, but they said that's what they would do. Her mother also came out and said that she thinks that Casey is mentally ill and that she suffers from seizures that Casey is unaware of. But just saying that there's that in the works. So if you don't like the TV show Big Brother, there could be one that's like OJ and Casey. You're dying to watch. Yeah, right? That's the new How to Get Away with Murder TV show. That's funny. They can't get in trouble. If OJ came out and said, you know what? Fooled you, I did it. He could not get in trouble for it because of double jeopardy. Yep. So let's hear your autopsy again. So now we know our cause of death. We didn't talk about mechanism of death. Remember, the mechanism of death is a specific body physiological response. So evidence from the autopsy, the medical examiner or the coroner, if you just have an elected official, is there to establish both the cause of death and the manner of death, we said. The tissues and organs, those things are retained for pathological and toxicological examination. So for pathology and toxicology. So what's the difference between them? Let's start with toxicology because I feel like you know what that one is a little bit better. Drugs and poisoning. So that's what this is looking at. Drugs, poisons. What is pathology? Perfect. Diagnosis of diseases. Then why do we call it a pathological liar? You're diagnosed as a liar? Just saying. At the same time, arrangements are made between the examiner and investigator for a variety of items that may be obtained from the body during lab examination. What type of things would you expect to find at the body? Or what do you think that they're going to have to secure? Clothes is definitely one of the things. So let's take a look. The following are things that are collected and sent to the forensic lab. The clothing is number one. What's the next thing they might take? That counts as clothing. So clothing would be like their jewelry, maybe their cell phone, things like that. Personal items.
Any sort of like glass fragments or bullet fragments?
Okay, so we're going to have recovered bullets. Where would you... Recovered bullets. They might... Yep, take the fingernail scrapings. Body fluids. So body fluids, specifically, they're going to be looking at vaginal, anal, and oral swabs. And these are most often done as part of your sexual assault examination, the SAE. But that's not the only swabbing we'll be doing. We'll be doing that cheek swab. Why do we get this, though? For DNA. As far as your glass and stuff, a lot of times that's going to come from combing the hair. So, bless you. So combings from the head and from your pubic hair. Yeah, it is. Additional things that you might actually have to take as well, depending on the cause of death. You might have hand swabs from shooting victims. If you're a shooting victim, why am I swabbing your hands? Yep, hand swabs from... Bless you, to make sure I didn't shoot myself. Not today. Class is canceled. There's also going to be swabs. Bless you. A chain reaction. Swabs of body areas suspected of contact. With DNA from things like saliva. There's that episode of CSI where the girl says that the cop at the store spit on her and they were able to take her sweater and find a big old glob of the concentrated spit.
I think it was more just like a little bit of splatter.
That's normal. But if someone like hocked a big loogie on you, then
But like, because we watched that, right? Didn't they only find like a little bit?
no, they found a big old.
They did?
They did, yeah. And then any other personal effects. Like your cell phones. I'd say your camera, but you know, that doesn't happen anymore. First part of your autopsy. So autopsy consists of two parts. It's really easy. You have an external examination and an internal examination. You guys are going to perform an autopsy on a specimen. Oh, we have the specimens in the back. They are, yep. Oh, yeah, it's they're a larger fetal pig, so we're not doing rats anymore, but I'm going to let you work in groups of 3. They're actually so large that they could have been given birth to, but they weren't. They're big. So when you guys do your autopsy, you'll have an autopsy form similar to that they would use in an actual autopsy, and you're going to start with the external examination, and then you'll move on to the internal examination. There'll be 3 of you doing it. One of you is there to document everything. So if there's an individual in here who was hesitant to actually touch the body, then you can document it. You 3. So the first steps taken for your external exam is a broad condition of the body and the clothing. So for you guys, there will be no clothing on the little piggies. So you'd say that the body was brought in without clothes. The condition of the body, you're going to have to look for any types of external damage. Yeah. So some of them actually, yours don't have the plastination put in it, or the colors, the different colors in there for like the blood and stuff. But sometimes you'll find them, they have actually have cuts on their neck near the carotid artery, and some of them, might have like a damaged leg or a damaged tail or something. So you would have to go through and you'd have to look at that, and you'll be looking for the color. Some of the pigs come in, they're all pink, and some of them come in and they're black and white. The external examination also consists of classifying the injuries. So when you classify your injuries, you're going to be looking at the different types of wounds, and there are 3 main types of wounds. The first one, you remember, you want me to make it smaller? I should, yeah. The first one is going to be your blunt force injuries. What's a blunt force injury? Yes, let's hit someone with a bat or a pipe. So this is going to be a non-sharpened object. So this is caused by a non-sharpened object. Somebody's coffee really smells good. So a non-sharpened object, you said like a bat or a pipe. Blunt force injuries, what do they cause? Very good. They cause contusions, which is basically a fancy word for a bruise, right? And that comes from the blood, the blood vessels being ruptured and getting trapped under the skin because it was blunt, didn't rupture the skin, so there was no bleeding. It can also cause what we call abrasions. So if it's not blunt force trauma that we've gotten from being hit with a bat, you guys are all full of like great ideas to kill people. Stab wounds, but the stab wounds are called sharp force injuries.
Did you see how they were talking about how people can get stabbed by ice bullets?
No. This is from weapons with sharp edges. So this would be your knife, a razor, a sword. I don't know how many swords are out there. All right, so the swords are there, right? So part of the examination when looking at these like abrasions or contusions, as well as the sharp force trauma, you would look at the size of it. So you would look at the size of the entry wound or the size of the bruise. The measurements are important. Another type of injury be your gunshot injury or gunshot wound. Yep. Gunshot wound or a GSW. It's caused by the it's caused by the ballistic or the propelled ballistic missile. It's a small missile. Now, there are different types of wounds. Even though asphyxiation is a cause of death, there are other wounds you would see, like you would have the abrasions caused by the hanging, if they had used a rope or a noose. A crossbow, that would be sharp force injury, because you've got the tip of the arrow going in. Right, because it's the ballistic, because it would initially be the gunshot wounds. It's basically a bullet. I'm sorry. I'm not an English teacher, even though I played one this morning. I know. So the internal examination, it's basically a dissection. Sometimes we call it a necropsy because it's already done. It entails the removal of all kinds of fun stuff. Although you can't say all kinds of fun stuff. You okay? So your internal, it's going to be the removal of all internal organs. So when you do yours, remember when you were in biology and you kind of just like cut things apart willy-nilly looking at stuff? Here you've got to be much more careful and directed. So it's the removal of all internal organs. When we do this, when we remove these internal organs, well, how do we get to them? Well, it goes through a Y-shaped incision. And this Y-shaped incision, it begins at the top of each shoulder. Will you guys quit texting each other?
He didn't respond. It was just me.
He's trying to respond right now. Begins at the top of each shoulder, and it extends down to the pubic bone.
Are we going to treat the pig like a human when we do this?
Yes.
Okay. Why not?
So you'll be making that same Y incision as well. So when you perform your internal examination, you're going to have to weigh, dissect, so cut open, and section each organ. What? That's why I said weigh it. The first thing up there, weigh. So for each organ, you will weigh it. You're going to have to get the overall mass of your specimen. Then you're going to have to get the mass of each organ. I will tell you the hardest one to get is going to be the brain. So you have to be very careful.
You gotta be smart about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Starting your dissection, I don't know. I think I have it for next week because I didn't want the room to smell real bad for that. But we might do it this week and then, huh? I expect it to take you guys probably 2 or 3 days. I mean, it's going to take minimum 2 days, but it's probably going to take you longer than that to do it right. The internal examination is also where toxicological specimens are taken. So some of the toxicology specimens that are taken are going to be, of course, blood. So you won't be able to get blood because yours are filled with formalin. But you will be able to get the stomach contents. Now yours will probably have meconium in it because they haven't been born yet. Meconium. It's the first bowel movement that a baby makes after birth. It's a black tar-like substance that comes from the ingestion of amniotic fluid in utero, as well as the sloughing off of cells. So like floating around, all the goo that's floating around in the amniotic sac, yes. You won't be able to collect the bile. And you probably won't have any urine in there because fetal organisms urinate freely into the amniotic fluid. Blood is also routinely tested to determine the presence and levels of things like alcohol and drugs. I don't think that there's any drugs present. Is there anyone who does not know how these pigs are provided? Do you not know? These pigs are a byproduct of the pork industry, which means that when pigs are taken to slaughter, they bring them in on a large conveyor belt, and they all walk in happy little pigs. And then they push them into a room that has an electric floor, and once they get into the box, they flip the switch. The pigs fall over dead because they've been electrocuted. Now, the benefit to this is that it's supposed to be quick and painless. None of them have ever complained afterwards. And it doesn't damage the meat. So the pigs, what they'll do is when they go to the slaughter, after they exsanguinate them, they slice the neck, they drain all the fluid out, or the liquid out of them, and they go and they slice open their abdomen. If they happen to have been pregnant, they take those piggies out of their little womb and they throw them in a bucket, and children like you get to enjoy them. So they're not going to make baby bacon out of it. So because these were pigs that were about to give birth, that were there for part of the food industry. Instead of throwing them away, then you get to use them. That's where they come from, though. It's not like pigs were made pregnant just to take their babies away so you could dissect them. It's a byproduct of the food industry. It's important to note that some drugs will redistribute and re-enter the bloodstream, and that's going to complicate the interpretation of postmortem blood levels. That's why often they will use ocular fluids, which comes from the eyeball. Jeez, the eyeball.
Heroin addicts that clog up all their veins. They gotta inject heroin through the eyes.
That's disgusting. I don't want to talk about that. I can't imagine doing that. So since we have a little bit of time, Now that we know what happens when we have a normal looking corpse, let's talk about an abnormal looking corpse. So these are going to be your stages of decomposition. So the first is initial decay. And this is within 2 days after death. So that's 2 days post-mortem. One of the first thing that starts, cellular autolysis, which means what?
Programmed cell death.
Programmed cell death. Very good. That's cytolysis. There you go. Yeah. Green and purple staining occurs. And this green and purple staining occurs because the blood's breaking down. Now, I don't recommend you looking at dead animals on the side of the road to determine their stages of decomposition, but this works.
You know when you drive over skunk dead, smell it.
Yes. The skin takes on a marbled appearance. Yeah. And then the face becomes discolored. Within 1 to 2 days.
How, like, when, you know when a person dies, but they're still having, like, the week or, like, a couple days?
That's been, because they have been embalmed. Same thing with, like, your little piggies. They have stopped the decomposition process. Even if they weren't found till later, usually they would have like a closed casket, but if they have an open casket, they have a lot of makeup on them.
Yeah.
Lots of makeup. And that's a skill, like, I couldn't do that. They would all look like a clown. Happy days.
We're not 6 feet or something like that.
Yep. After 4 days, we have the next step of decomposition, putrefaction. So this is after 4 days. Hopefully you've been found by then. If not, we can look forward to your skin blistering. Yep, it is disgusting. And this is where your abdomen bloats. Yep, like the beached whales. It swells because of carbon dioxide that's going to build up in it. And the carbon dioxide is released by bacteria in the intestinal tract. So you're slowly inflating. And like Aaron said, it's not unlike those lovely videos of the whales exploding that you can see online.
There's always a poor dude just
Just standing there just trying to get across the street. All right, the next part is advanced putrefaction. Putrefaction. This is 6 to 10 days. By the way, there's these places called body farms where they actually just leave bodies out there to decay, and that's how they document these things. University of Tennessee has a very large one. There's near a lot of schools have it, but the one in University of Tennessee is the most popular one, or the biggest one. For this one,
Was one of bones based on a real one, or was that just made up?
the corpse continues to bloat. With that CO2. Eventually, the chest and abdominal cavities burst. and then collapse. Now we've got an opening, so fluids will leak from body openings as the cell membranes rupture. Your eyeballs and other tissues will liquefy. And finally, your skin will slough off. To slough off would kind of be like if you can think of your skin like sleeves, and you went to roll up your skin just like that. It would just like the sleeves of a shirt. So the skin just kind of sloughs off. It falls off. Huh? That's because there's nothing holding it together. Everything underneath is liquefying, so there's no like tendons or anything to kind of hold your skin in place anymore. So it all just falls off. So like if you've ever seen like on bones where they go to grab the body that's been decomposing for a while, and then it just kind of like the skin just like shreds like a wet piece of paper. Mm-hmm. That's the sort of thing that would happen. So let's name these levels up.
Ooh.
So the first one, again, we're just going to call it initial decay. And we said that's 0 to 3 days. We're going to have plain old beginning putrefaction, so we're just going to call it putrefaction. And that's going to be from 4 to 10 days. Then putrefaction gets emo. So it's black putrefaction. It's not a phase. Well, I guess technically it is. That's for days 10 through 20. In this black putrefaction, this is where you have your strong odor. That's not Drakkar. This is where your flesh appears black, hence the name. And our gases escape. And the corpse collapses. After that, there's more. But wait, there's more. After 20 days, from days 20 to 50, you have butyric fermentation. So that's going to be days 20 to 50. This is where the corpse starts to dry out. We call it dehiss or desiccate. And then most of the flesh is gone. All of these things help forensic investigators to determine the time of death. And then finally, we have dry decay. And this is usually when it's 50 days or more out. And this is where your corpse is almost dry. And further decay slows because of lack of moisture. So what are some factors that might speed up decomposition? Yep, so let's look at factors that speed. First one, age. Who's going to decompose faster? Young. Why? They have more water weight in their body. How about size? Who's going to decompose faster, obese or smaller?
Small.
Actually, overweight people. Because of the same thing with the amount of water that's in there. Water helps with decomposition. Warm, moist environment, that's where bacteria thrive. So overweight decompose faster. And then, of course, our ever popular temperature. So one way that we can look at temperature would be clothing. So who's going to decompose faster, naked or clothed? Actually, naked bodies. Why? To the elements, yeah. Naked bodies decompose faster.
But like, if someone had something like a really heavy coat on, wouldn't it like underneath it, like bacteria get up in there?
Well, it's not so much that. It's like bugs and things like that that come and feed on it. Higher temperatures tends to preserve the corpse. It's going to dry out faster, like mummification. Lower temps, same thing. It's going to prevent bacterial growth, so it's going to slow decomposition. What about the environment? Well, let's say here if it's exposed to the air. So basically in the back of a science lab. I mean, no, that wouldn't happen. It's going to decompose more quickly. Because it's in an oxygen-rich environment, it's going to allow for organisms to be able to speed up the rate at which they work. However, what if I dumped you in the water? Or if I buried you, it would slow decomposition. Again, because it's lacking that oxygen. Tomorrow, we watch the autopsy.